Thanks for staying up later. This is the first of two shows with the rapper Ice-T. We should point out we're taping them in Los Angeles on Friday, April 9th. Who knows what subsequent developments might do in terms of what we would have talked about had we known, but we're just proceeding from here on a number of topics with Ice-T. Now, no matter what happens, no matter how well the present album Home Invasion sells, no matter what you've done in the past and will do in the future, it seems like Ice-T, Cop Killer, is always going to be the headline next to your name. Are you comfortable with that?
Well, I have to determine whether I'm really concerned with the people who don't know me or my fans. There's times where you get to the point where you're just like, I'm not going to explain this anymore. I don't want to talk about it, because you're explaining it to people that don't listen to you. You know, it's like trying to get a whole bunch of people who never heard of you to understand you, and that's really hard. So, in a way, it doesn't bother me, you know, because I know my fans look at me as something different. I've done 6 albums, and that just happens to be one song, so it doesn't really bother me.
Now, obviously, you gained widespread attention beyond those who regularly listen to your work when the controversy about Cop Killer arose, and eventually you parted company with Time Warner, which at first supported you, and then that support waned, and obviously various police associations were outraged by the lyrics, and it sparked a big controversy, not only about who you spoke for and what the quality of your message was, but about censorship and First Amendment rights and whatnot. My question is, are you misunderstood or simply disagreed with? Do people simply vehemently disagree with you, or do they actually misunderstand you, and this is a chance to set them straight as to what you actually believe?
I think it's a little bit of both. As far as being misunderstood, that particular song was misunderstood because the song, I played a character of a person who was on a rampage and was angry. It's like a protest record. It was a record in a way of saying, hey, this is how mad people are getting, you know? And this guy just went out on a rampage and killed police. So I think that was misunderstood. But then as far as being disagreed with, I do have a lot of opinions that people disagree with. You know, I'm not a big fan of corrupt law enforcement officials. I'm not a big fan of politicians. I'm a pretty radical person when it comes to that, because I think America needs drastic change, and I think people have to speak up. I don't necessarily believe in this passive attitude about, well, you shouldn't be angry, you shouldn't be mad, because you have to. The problem is that now I've got like mainstream notoriety. I'm doing movies and things like this, and the statements I make are not normal for people in my position to make. At this point, I should be very quiet. I should just say, well, I'm happy to make movies, I'm happy to make records, let me just make everybody happy. But I'm not. This is a time for me to really speak up and say how I feel. So I feel I should be disagreed with by the system or the man, because my agenda is counter to theirs.
Somebody could say cynically, you're the beneficiary, though, of all of this. And it actually doesn't hurt you, even from a position now of relative privilege and wealth. It doesn't hurt you to continue to express these sentiments, because that's who you are. You're marketable as an actor, you're marketable as a performer to a greater extent than you ordinarily would be if this tremendous controversy hadn't arisen.
I didn't want it. You know, I don't care what people say. When the Cop Killer drama hit, the album had been out 3 months. If we had wanted it, we would have did a publicity stunt or something back then. People do that. Let people know.
In fact, it was dying commercially before the.
Yeah, they jumped on it, you know, and I stayed away from the media, the press. Most of the press, if you read it, you don't hear quotes from me. This is what everybody else assumes I'll say. Because I knew that I was watching myself on TV, and I'm saying, I know people got to get sick of seeing me on television. This isn't what I want. Controversy is anytime you say something that the mainstream disagrees with. This becomes controversial, you know. If I say have sex in a missionary position, this is not controversial. After you're married, that's not controversial. If you say something a little bit outside of these boundaries, you have created controversy. I can't help but be controversial. I'm a black man in America who's angry. I can't help it. Every word that comes out of my mouth, unless I totally fold in and become part of it.
What you say is more than a little bit outside the mainstream, which doesn't make it wrong, but a lot of people would say there's anger, which is understandable, but is this a productive expression of that anger? Is this something that we want to align ourselves with? Does this lead to a positive end?
Well, I don't necessarily believe that that's my job to be this promoter of all this positive energy. You know, now that I have that people are listening to me, everybody says, okay, now you have to take that and become extremely positive. I have to do what I enjoy. A lot of the stuff, if you listen to it and take it out of context, will be considered very negative. But if you put it in the book and you read it along with the rest of the pages, you'll see where I'm coming from. People on the street tell me what to write about. You know, I walk up to the kids in the hood and they say, hey, man, you got to tell these police what's up, man, because it's going to be on in a minute. And I say it on the record. People say, you're promoting a riot. Do you think that I made the people go out and uprise? Do you think me, just me, I can make that happen? I told you it was coming, you know? The same way I told you that there's people out there in a position and they're angry enough to be hostile toward police. I'm not making them do it. I'm just letting you know. I have a job. This is my job. It's like they say, Ice, man, you gotta rap about this, man. You gotta. I'm more concerned with the people on the bottom and the kids telling me what's up than these people who say, well, he shouldn't. He should try to make the world look better. And I think people have been sedated. I think this world has been pastel colored too long.
You think there's any possibility that, even if it isn't the intent, that in a handful of cases, your work or the work of other people could help incite individuals to violent acts?
No.
No chance?
Never been proven. Not once. You know, it hasn't been proven. If you could show me a case, then I might believe it. But when they said Luke Skywalker and 2 Live Crew was creating these problems, I didn't see, you know, rape go up or teenage pregnancy. I mean, people are always trying to say what can make someone do something, you know? Well, a movie will make you do this. I don't believe that. I think it has to do with how you're raised, your parents, and the people you come in contact with in day-to-day life, not music. Music is entertainment. If that's the case, with all the Jason movies and Freddy Krueger I've been watching, I should want to go out and just stab everybody at any summer camp I go to. That's not what happens. I think you see the movie, it creates adrenaline rushes, it makes you feel a certain way, and it's just a bunch of double standards. It's unfair.
So if you're dealing with imagery, or in a song like Cop Killer, you're simply creating a dramatic scenario, and this guy is a character rather than Ice-T using a musical pulpit to exhort people to action.
Right.
Let's accept that, and also accept this premise for this show. It's hard to talk about songs and lyrics in a talk show without dropping in little bits of video and people that aren't familiar with it and haven't heard it. It's hard. So let's talk about what you believe. Do you think there would ever be a justification for, not in direct self-defense, but for actively going out and killing a policeman?
Now, say that again.
Do you think there would... we're not talking about a situation where the person's life is threatened, and the policeman has a gun at their head for no good reason. I'm talking about going out, leaving the house with the objective of killing a policeman.
No.
Under no circumstances.
No. There would be no reason to kill him there's no reason. The chorus of the record says, cop killer, it's better you than me. What I'm trying to say, if I'm going to kill you, it's better me, right? If you're going to kill me, it's better you. That's all it is. It's a self-defense record. It's about a guy who's put it to the limit. He's just got to push to the limit. No. And this man definitely in the record is insane. Now, as far as me acting out delusions of killing police, I have delusions of killing cops sometimes. I'm that angry at times watching things on TV, and I see things like the Rodney King incident, and I say, man, they should kill them cops. All right? That's anger. That's rage. I don't know if it's right, but that's how I feel. And I know a lot of people in America can look at that and say, man, that ain't right. And yet that anger exerts. At that moment, that's when we write the song, you know?
Yeah.
No, no, no. And please, anybody who's listening and watching this, don't go out and do this. You know, I mean, it's just music, you know what I'm saying? I just think it's up under a microscope at this point now, and people are so afraid of rap. They're saying, oh, this is what can happen. But the real problem is home invasion. That's the real problem. The real problem isn't what I'm saying on the record. The real problem is that white kids in America are now singing these words. The records that came out this past year, along with mine, Ice Cube, Ghetto Boys, Dr. Dre, all these records are hardcore. But my record, for some unknown reason, has been sucked into the white community. We've injected our anger into them. And I feel the allies, the white youth that are out there that understand this injustice is the only chance that my brothers and sisters, black people, will have a chance to really make a move in the future. I think you're dealing with a revolutionary period at this point.
So you think you are reaching young white people in terms of affecting their thoughts as opposed to just entertaining them and, as many young people do, thinking this is the trend of the moment, thinking it's a cool pose to strike. You think you're getting inside their heads in a way that's more lasting than that?
Well, it's definite. Something is getting in there, because at this moment, you can walk down any street and you'll see more white kids with African pendants on, wearing X T-shirts, wearing kente cloth and different things like that.
But the cynic could say that's just fashion, that's just trend.
Cynics are idiots. Cynics are critics. They have no real value in this system, people who are cynical, you know? I'm not just for the police being mad, you know, they can be mad all they want. I'm telling Mexicans, black kids, white kids, all of us, we got to understand that if we get together, we'll find out we have the same enemy. These are the people who want to keep us separate. If the police are out there doing their job, they're doing an honest job, and they're looking out for people, then I ain't got nothing but love for them, you know? That's a very honorable job. But if they're out there and they're on their little racist move and they look at people as subhuman, then I don't have no love for them, and why should I want to see them alive? They want to kill me.
So now that's where I see someone possibly agreeing with what they just heard you say, in fact, being encouraged by what they just heard you say, and then here comes the next criticism.
But you know what, let me tell you, what the problem is in this format, you heard the whole statement. In the press, it'll read, why should I have love for them? They want to kill me. Bam, that's all you read. You read just the part that I said at the end. And that's what creates all this negative hype.
That's why I'm glad you're here, because it's not going to get soundbited. It's not going to be out of context. And instead of it being the music, we can talk about what you actually think.
That's why I came.
And some people are going to say the problem here is not making distinctions. The NAACP came out with a report about 2 weeks or so ago. I don't have it in front of me, but I think this is more or less the gist of it. They said that police brutality and a double standard in terms of how the police operate in black and white communities is still tremendously prevalent. It's a terrible problem in America. It's got to be forcefully addressed. They also said that the majority of cops, black and white, were decent people doing a difficult and dangerous job, and that it was dangerous to paint them with a single brush. Do you have any problem with that?
Nope. I'm willing to believe that. This year, I went on tour. I met more police I did autographs for them. I've met more police that were cool. I met more police that walked up to me and said, Ice, man, we know what you were talking about. You know? The other cops, they turned their nose up at me. It's cool. You understand what I'm saying? But believe me, if the cops treated white people the way they treat black people, a white group would have made the song Cop Killer. Do you understand what I'm saying? You will never understand it till you've been there, till you've seen it. When black people saw the Rodney King incident, we didn't say, oh my God, we said they finally got caught. So that, you know, the best thing for them to do is just to go ahead, do their job, and stop worrying about it. There will always be people who are angry until they get their job together. All they have to do is start treating people like human beings. I've totally apologized to anybody who took it wrong, you know, but that was one song, and you know, it's just, that's not really who I am. If you listen to the entire Home Invasion album, you can find a lot more to Ice-T than just this cop thing.
Yeah, 1993, and it's still me, our rapping brother from LA, the cool T, this a brother, hater brother.
Cara, Florida.
I pray LA can stay this way. It's the first summer I can really say I felt cool, we all chill. Went to the park and nobody got killed. Now if you got a problem, it's man on man. You don't need a gang to solve them. I seen the greatest thing I've seen in my life. Two brothers in a straight up fist fight. Nobody pulled a gat, nobody jumped in, nobody pulled a knife, nobody got done in. LA is where I'm speaking of. Peace to my city, cause I got a lot of love.
If you make a record or a video like Got a Lot of Love, praising the truce between the Crips and the Bloods and talking about the benefits that can come from harmony, not just the absence of violence and the heartache that that brings, but the positive direction that can send people toward. Obviously, you're hoping to influence people. You're hoping to use your prestige within that community and your talents to influence people. So on the flip side, somebody could say, if he puts out a song like Cop Killer, and Cop Killer is just the most famous one, there are lots of references, including in Home Invasion, to extreme aggression and hatred of the police and violent images associated with that, then in theory, that ought to be able to influence people too.
Well, Got a Lot of Love is a record it's just kind of like a way of me saying to the gangbangers that I care about them. That's really what that record is. I'm not influencing the gangbangers. The kids in the gangs are making their own decisions. I did not create the gang truce. It's just a way of me saying I'm very happy that, you know, you guys have finally got together. The gang truce is the most important thing that ever happened in my entire life. More of my friends have died in gang violence, and more black people have died in gang violence than to any foreign war or disease. So this is the most important thing. It's just so strange to me that you are the first person that's even asked me about Got a Lot of Love. You know, it's always the negative. It's always the negative. Got a Lot of Love is on there, and that's important. Now, the question of if I can give out positive messages and I want them to be followed, do I think the negative messages will be followed? At no time on this record do you hear me say, go do it. You never hear me say, go do it. You don't hear me say, go out and hurt somebody. I talk as a person. This is how I'm acting and stuff. Also, you got to understand that in hardcore rap, there's a lot of hardcore imagery. Just like when you go see a movie and you see police get shot, or you see Arnold Schwarzenegger walk into a place and kill up a lot of police. What message is that sending out? Or is that just action footage on film? You got to remember that rap records are like movies at times. Show me one case, just one, or half of a case, and I'll believe it. But until then, it's all just, well, this is what I'm worried about, this is what I'm worried about, I'm afraid. Start dealing with the issues. Stop dealing with the issue that will make a kid want to go out and hurt a policeman. Start dealing with that, and not stop worrying about the music. The music is not what's going to send somebody over the edge. It's going to be the conditions.
No little sermon, y'all.
We talked a lot about the sociological aspects of this. Let's talk about rap briefly as a musical form. You know what the long-standing criticism is: interesting, relevant, sometimes humorous lyrics, incessant beat, interesting form, no melody, therefore incomplete as music. What do you say?
Well, you know, music is for whoever likes it. You know, I call music is like going into a 31 flavors and you pick out your flavor. You might like jazz, you might like pop, and rap is definitely acquired taste. As far as it having to have a melody, a lot of jazz doesn't have a beat. You know, there's no drums to it. Does that mean it's not music? Some people say it's not art, but if you look up art in the dictionary, it says anything which it requires skill to do. So I challenge anybody who says it's not art to speak in rhyme for a minute, you know. So it's something, it's from the streets, man. It's what it is.
Neil Young had an interesting quote to you. He said, a lot of times I got a potential lyric, but I haven't got any melody at all. I can't figure out how to put it in a song. You don't have that problem.
Yeah, Neil Young loves rap. He just thought it was the best and the newest thing. Quincy Jones. I've worked with lots of people. Bono from U2. There's so many people that like rap that the people who don't, it just doesn't bother me anymore. I mean, people who I really respect in music, who I didn't expect to like rap, love it. As long as there's music, there will be people talking on records. It is now a format. It's a way of getting a message across or something straight to the point. You know, and if you don't like it, that's cool too, because there's lots of music I don't like. But it's exactly what it is. It's just a new style, and it's been around about 10 years, and it ain't going nowhere.
What about the criticism of you and of rap in general that it's blatantly sexist?
Right.
Violence against women, or women in a subservient position, and bitches and hoes, and...
We got to remember, most, especially hardcore rap, comes from the street, where masculinity is at a premium.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When I first started rapping, I didn't really understand gay people. You know what I'm saying? You might hear some of my early records where I make derogatory remarks about being gay. I've grown, I understand a little bit more now, and you'll never hear me say stuff like that again. You know what I'm saying? But as far as with women, verbal jousting goes on in the ghetto situation continuously. Men talk about women, women talking about men. And when it's taken out of, you know, taken and put into the American culture, a lot of people don't understand it. White people don't really do that the way we do it. And so
Richard Pryor used to do a great bit about that,
Yeah.
about the differences in the way blacks talk to each other as opposed to whites, the differences in the way they got angry and stuff.
The best way to explain rap, hardcore rap, is it's a conversation on the telephone between two people from the same neighborhood. And we're talking, yo man, she wasn't doing this and that and that. And the other guy's like, yo man, blah, blah, blah. And white America picks up the phone and they listen and they go,
On a party line.
yeah, and then they hang the phone up, and then they say, oh, they shouldn't talk like that. But who told you to pick the phone up?
5.
Too much for 1/2 hour to contain, but there will be a next time with Ice-T. We'll tape a second show, show it to you shortly. Until then, see you later.
Speaking of, peace to my city, 'cause I got a lot of love.
Thanks for staying up later. This is the second of our 2 programs with the rapper Ice-T, and we just let the tape roll as we sat down, so let's just pick it up wherever we left off last night, and I can't actually remember, but here we go. We're in kind of a touchy place time-wise, because as we tape this, the jury is getting the case in the second Rodney King trial. By the time this airs, the verdict undoubtedly will be in, and whatever reaction did or didn't ensue, everyone will already know about. So we're talking in that context. Suppose these police officers walk again. What do you think is the appropriate reaction?
I really don't know, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to see people go out in the streets and, you know, demonstrate, you know, like what happened in the last one. But then at the same time, the people at this point, when they find that there's no justice, they become the law. You know, like we were saying before, when the actual beating went down, there was no uprising. People say, well, why? They wanted to do that. I'm like, no, they didn't. They waited for justice. Justice didn't come, and the people made their own decisions. Here we go again. People are waiting on justice. There's nobody outside right now, you know, doing anything. But if they don't get justice, and I think that these cops have been found guilty by the entire world. I've traveled all over the world. I was in Europe. I was in Japan. And people were like, the cop's wrong. You know, everybody knows. Anybody with a eyedropper worth of brains can see that there was some crime committed in that street. I don't care what, some form of a crime. To be found innocent is a smack in the face of everybody. It's showing people that the judicial system does not work. You got everybody in the ghettos or around who's had somebody incarcerated. They've been incarcerated. So you got people saying, hey, wait a minute, you know, I went to jail. You know, my father's in jail. And they walk. What's going on here? As soon as you prove that there's people that can walk through the laws, then all the laws just become void. And people just decide, look, I have to pass judgment. So what you will see will be whatever the people determine to be justice at this point. The problem with this whole system is that the system has a way of issuing consequence. If you drive home tonight and you get a speeding ticket, the police will issue consequence. My question is, how do people, I'm gonna ask this question to you, how do people issue consequence on the system when they're wrong?
Well, one ineffective way, I think, is the uprising last time in South Central, because people who had nothing to do with it are
No.
impacted.
I'm not saying ineffective. I'm saying effective. How do you issue a consequence to them when they mess up?
Well, obviously,
Vote?
through voting would be one way you'd be told. There are civilian review boards in many cities. I'm not saying this stuff is effective because obviously this brutality, at least in isolated incidents, continues. But public opinion will coalesce around at least an aspect of what you're talking about. People are outraged. Obviously, it impacts blacks and people in the inner city more directly. But there's a key to what you just said a moment ago about everywhere you went, people were outraged. 99% of the white people I know were outraged at the time they saw the video. They were outraged after the verdict. It didn't take the uprising in South Central to get them to say, gee, I guess we better say this was a bad thing or else they'll burn my house down.
But it took the uprising to get the second trial. You see, if there is no consequence, the government will continue to do what they want. And when I ask people how to issue a consequence and they say they don't, well, do not believe America issues consequences continually. If we have a war with somebody, if somebody does not agree to what one of our presidents says, we bomb them. We issue ultimatums continuously from government. Now, the people are supposed to run a democracy, but the people have no power. The people, regardless of how unfocused, ignorant, we can throw all the names at it, the people have to make a move. The government has to know these people will rise up. The emperor has to know he can be dethroned. It's called revolution, and it happens every 100 years. You had a Boston Tea Party. You had this go down before. I am not saying it's the correct way, but the fact that they are afraid of this verdict is the only thing you're going to get near close to a fair trial. I mean, is Rodney King where's the jury of their peers? You know what I'm saying? This is the whole judicial system is so twisted. It's like, it also proved that 12 in a box, there were 12 people, found them innocent. That means that the system doesn't work. We know they're guilty, right? I do. I don't know how you feel, but I do. Now,
I felt emotionally, as did most people I know, the overwhelming majority, just by seeing the video, we felt that. But what happens under this system is that everybody gets a defense. And sometimes the defense is more effective than the prosecution, and all they got to do is create a reasonable doubt about those charges. And unless you sat in that jury box every day, you don't know what came their way and what they were left to consider. It is hard for me to imagine that anything could so mitigate what I saw on that tape that I would think these guys weren't guilty. But that is an aspect of the system.
Okay, here you go. So let's say that the 12 in a box, we don't think it works. So if 12 jurors find you innocent when people think you're guilty, that means that my question is, how many other people have been victims of this same system? How many people are sitting on death row right now because the trial didn't go the right way? It means it doesn't work. So what you do is, to make it better, you issue odds. You say, well, look, 2 out of 3. But who can afford that? That's called an appeal, and that costs money. So this is how the system kind of leans towards somebody who has more money versus someone who doesn't. It's just, to me, it's just a joke, this whole big charade of what's going through right now. What chance would have Rodney King had in court if there wasn't a video? Would we even know about it? Or would he just been laughed and pushed under the carpet the way the cops were planning on changing the reports and everything? This is what you're seeing going on here. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And also, every cop on that street should be going to jail. Every last one of them cops. If I was in a bar and a woman got raped and I stood there and watched, I'd go to jail. You understand? It's all a joke. It's all a joke. And the American people are seeing this, the kids in the ghetto, and when they put the verdict down, let the chips fall where they may.
Let the chips fall where they may, but what will be the positive consequence of it? You can't target.
But no, like I'm saying, the positive consequence of the last one was this trial.
Think it's worth it?
It's got to be, because without justice, there's no life for anybody out there. Without justice, what is it? What is it? You know what I'm saying? Why even live, you know, without justice for your kids? They have to know that everybody got to be equal out here in America. That's all black people want, is equality.
I think a lot of people, black and white, take a look at what happened last time in South Central, and they say the spark of this may be outrage and the pursuit of justice. And some of the people out there may have been acting solely for that reason. But also an environment was created in which mere criminals, many of them white, by the way, many of them Hispanic, certainly not all of them black, in which mere criminals did what criminals do given the opportunity. So why should we let it all have happened under the cloak of the pursuit of social justice? That's not fair. That blurs the issue.
It's not criminals, it's poor people. It's poor people. What happened was once the uprising began, poverty set in. And you got people, you say, why were people looting? Because people are broke, you know? And there's a store open there, and I don't have a TV, and there's something there, and I'm gonna take it. And once they saw that justice and the law is not real, then why respect any of the laws? This is the real problem you have. When you show America or the world that there is injustice, then all the laws become void. It's like, why am I not speeding now or not doing this when I see that it doesn't go for everybody, you know? The people made moves. The Korean people became the boot of this whole thing, which was wrong. The Korean community should not have been attacked. There's been a lot of miscommunication between the black and Korean community. But after the uprising, there's been more communication than ever with the Korean community, and this is something they're good. Sometimes you gotta fight somebody just to turn out to be your best friend, you know? The problem with the Koreans had the stores, but they would only hire their own family. And the black kids are saying, well, damn, if I can't get this job at the corner, I can't work in white America, they ain't hiring me neither. You gotta treat me with a little bit of respect. I think now the communication is built up. There will not be that. I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm not gonna sit up here and tell you people, but all I can say is that when the verdict comes down, it will not just happen in Los Angeles, it'll be national, and the people will make their own decisions. At that point, the people will say the courts are no good, the laws are no good, and we will determine what the correct and appropriate action will be. Me, myself, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I know when I heard that last verdict, I cried. Did you?
I can't honestly say that I shed tears, but I was angry and concerned, that's for sure.
Well, I had people over my house
outraged,
crying.
I think it'd be fair to say.
They could not understand it. I mean, you know, it's just like, man, that means we ain't nothing. That means we ain't nothing. That means it's okay, it's legal. It's legal to whoop us, man. And people were mad. My buddy's in jail, man. My father's locked up, man. My sister's in jail, man. People are mad about it. So,
and you know, I think there's a lot of people out there, and maybe you could talk to them, the hypothetical person out there, white or black, who says, I hear a lot of what Ice-T's saying here, and I see and hear a different Ice-T than I might have been led to believe by the publicity surrounding his records when he gets to sit here in a long-form situation. A lot of what he says makes sense and seems heartfelt, and even if I disagree with particulars, I respect where he's coming from, and I know that there's a lot of truth there. But they might also say this: his truth is just part of a larger fabric of truth, and also within that are the cops who go into extremely dangerous situations. What made those situations dangerous, the pathologies of the inner city, and the hundreds of years it may have taken to create them, is too complex for any one human being who's alive in the here and now to deal with. And most of those human beings who wear uniforms or who represent some aspect of authority, who run a store, they're just people doing the best they can with wives and children of their own, and they go into situations where sometimes their lives are imperiled, where it's hard to determine what the right thing is. We're not talking about these obvious bad apples, whatever number they may be. So if the whole message doesn't get out there, all we're doing is polarizing people further. I'm not talking about a wimpy message, a strong, assertive message, but a message that takes into account the whole fabric.
Well, I feel that the problem is just that everyone is very confused. This country is built on a divide and conquer system. Keep everybody separate, including people separate from government. And if we do not communicate immediately, you will have some kind of chaotic situation with everybody at each other's throats. What I'm doing is attempting to let you see how confused we are, how delusioned we are, how we don't understand what's up, how angry we could be and lash out at somebody to let you know. We have to communicate. The white kids have to listen to me and hear what I'm saying. I got to listen to you. We have to communicate. And before rap music, there was no actual direct form of communication between white and black youth. White parents have always been able to say, you don't want to know them, just leave them alone, they'll rob you. And now the white kids are saying, hold up, moms, they got a point. This is what home invasion is about, and this is what's happening. And to tell you the truth, no matter how negative you think it is, it's the only honest chance we got. You got to know how mad I am so that you can maybe make it so I'm not so angry. You know what I'm saying? It's the only chance we got.
Goddamn, what a brother gotta do to get a message through to the red, white, and blue. What I gotta die before you realize I was a brother with open eyes. The world's insane while you drink champagne and I'm living in black rain. I hear it every night. Another gunfight. The tension mounts. On with the body count. Yo, Beatmaster B, take these motherfuckers to South Central. You look and y'all cameras is focused on what you see. This is the truth right here.
How about the Reginald Denny case?
The kids were wrong. The kids were wrong. They went out in the street, they hit the guy, they were wrong. And they will go to jail for it. Now, as far as pushing it beyond what it was, which was an assault, and saying that they created...
Could have been a murder.
Could have been, but...
Only a matter of where the bottle hits them.
Well, that's...
You know,
one of them...
same action could produce a murder.
Well, why don't we get a cop's attempted murder? Anytime you hit somebody in the head with a stick, that's a murder attempt, right?
I don't disagree with that.
So, you know, like I say, I don't think the people want to see...
Unless, of course, just to clarify, there may be times when a good cop has no choice but to take violent action to protect other people or to protect himself. The Rodney King case doesn't appear to reasonable people to be a case like that.
Reginald Denny situation, the kids was wrong. They got out there, they did it, but they didn't start a riot. The news started the riot by showing the situation, and it started to spread because the news pushed in on it.
Well, what else would they do, though?
What?
It's what's happening.
Right, but I'm saying you can't give these kids a charge of starting a riot.
No.
I think the people are willing for justice. Will L.A. rise up if these guys go to jail? I doubt it. Will L.A. rise up if these guys go to jail and the cops go free? I think so. They've pushed the L.A. the brothers' case back 6 months to separate it. Is that justice? Is that legal? Or is this just a skillful maneuvering of the pawns on the chessboard? You know, they don't want it to hit at the same time. You know, my whole thing is this. You know, Martin Luther King, you quote Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King said, anybody who asks more than to be equal is ludicrous. But to ask someone to start off from a race 300 years later and catch up, you're asking an impossible task. All black people want is equality and justice. We are not getting it. And until we do, and to be able to point at me and say, well, Ice-T, you got jury on, you're doing it, I'm 1 out of a million, okay? And the only reason I try to wear jewelry and stuff like this is to let people know, yo, it can be obtained. We can have these things. I'm not going to get anything about coming on here looking broke. But, you know, because to me, that's selling out. To me, that's selling out, acting like I ain't got it when I do. That's faking, you know? But regardless of how high you put me on a pedestal, I could care less about movies, I could care less about rap, nothing. I am more concerned with my friends and the people getting what they deserve, and that's justice.
Your car doesn't look, doesn't feel,
last thing before we wrap this up. What do you say to someone who says this? Not just someone who's saying, yeah, I guess there's racism because he wants to get rid of the topic. Someone who acknowledges racism as the country's greatest shame and as its #1 problem, as the subtext for most of the problems we talk about, whether or not we put the label of race on it.
Race and religious prejudice is the problem.
People who are genuinely concerned and outraged by it, but who might say this, you know what? The pathologies in the inner cities, the pathologies of poverty are so overriding that even if right now we could push a button and eliminate all overt bigotry, eliminate all police brutality, eliminate any example of prejudice when a qualified person goes for a job or wants to get into law school, just eliminate it. If that could all be eliminated, you still got a pathology at work here where 62% of black kids are born out of wedlock, where there aren't enough fathers in homes.
No, it would all change. It would all change. If you could eliminate all that, because there would never be economic equality without racial equality. And once you change that and people start looking at people as human beings, the money will start changing, and there won't be people born out of wedlock, because there'll be money there, there'll be a home, there'll be a different environment for these people to grow up in. Racial hatred is the main problem, and if white America will not look at us as human beings, they'll never allow us to make the same amount of money. Just higher education alone. You know, why? You know, it's just, you know, you get out of high school, and if you don't have money, you can't learn more. It's as simple as that. So people have to determine whether we all want to make, like Rodney King says, get along. And when that means on all levels, that pathology would totally change. All the crime, you don't see kids dropping out of law school robbing, or that are in law school robbing 7-Elevens. You don't see doctors come off from work and go out and stick up a liquor store. It doesn't happen. It's economic situations that create crime. And why are they building more penitentiaries, and why instead of more schools? And why aren't teachers the highest paid profession? Why would we prefer to spend all our money in drug enforcement and police and all that instead of dealing with education so that people can become part of the system and make some money and everybody will get along? Because you will not issue out racial equality. And until then, it's always going to be tilted. You know, let's cage up black people. Let's cage up the Hispanics. Let's not. Why don't we just give them a chance to go to college? I don't know. They might come up in my job here and take over America. You know, they're all foreigners. That's the problem.
Time to wrap it up with Ice-T. I got to tell you, I had some misgivings about having you on, not because I wasn't looking forward to the exchange and the conversation, because I was, but because I thought there were some people, not racists, decent, concerned people who couldn't help but misunderstand. They would say, look, to even give this guy a forum puts out potentially dangerous ideas. But I come away feeling that anybody who listened to this wouldn't necessarily agree, certainly not with all of it, but they have to have a better understanding and a different understanding of you than if they had just read about you in the newspaper.
Well, thanks for having the courage to put me on here, and hopefully, you know, you don't get in trouble for it.
Well, that's all right. I'm clearing out of here, so you'll have to find me in the dead of night. See you later.
Peace.
Thanks.
All right.
10 years ago, I used to listen to rappers flow, talking about the way they rock the mic at the disco. I like how that shit...